AI video tools all claim they can generate studio quality content, but when you actually use them, the reality is completely different. So I spent the last few days and hundreds of dollars testing the top AI video models, making the exact same product ad, UGC-style founder clip, and multi-scene brand story, same images, same prompts, same scenes, but the results? Well, some were insanely good, some were completely unusable, and some were accidentally horrifying. In this video, I'm going to show you which models actually work for real businesses and which ones you should avoid at all costs. Now, there are two types of video model that we could use, but only one of them is going to be really useful if you've already got a product that you want to advertise. So we could use text to video, which is as it sounds, takes an input text, understands and imagines a scene, and then outputs a video for us. But the outputs are not going to look like our brand as it has no reference images. So instead, the goal in this video is to use image to video AI to bring actual product images to life, as we can influence heavily what the output video is going to look like. So video models are really expensive at the moment, and not all of them work that well for different tasks. If you want to keep a character consistent between frames, for example, it might just mean picking multiple video models to get the best results. So I spent a couple of days and hundreds of dollars testing the top of the range models so that you don't have to. We're going to test these specialized models against three core business use cases. Firstly, a product ad that'd be expensive and fiddly to film. Second, the founder clone, so a UGC ad where we put someone who's known for a brand with their product, and I'm going to use myself as an example. And then finally, the hardest challenge, the day in the life customer story. So can we keep character consistency through different scenes? These are all things that would absolutely accelerate your business marketing. So let's get into the results of each model. So I started by trying to create a high-end commercial for a drinks brand. So we wanted a macro slow motion shot of a lemon splashing into a sparkling drink. Now let me explain the general process we've gone through. We've generated for each of these examples an image. So we've actually generated it inside the app itself. We've used the Imagen 4 to get high quality images as the output. And then we've used Gemini 3 to get a final frame of the video. So what we need to consider is, what does the start of our video look like? And what does the end video look like? And then we have two prompts that generate the first frame and the last frame. Because then what we're able to do is pass that first frame and end frame into our different models. Sometimes we can pass both, sometimes we can only pass the first frame, so that we have a consistent reference image and can see a comparison of each model with the same prompt. So we're going to be assessing a few different things. The adherence to the prompt. Does the model give us audio or no audio? And do we have to generate that separately? The overall realism of the shot, because as a brand, we want to make things look authentic. Motion of both our product and a character, if we've got a character or person inside it. And then finally, character consistency. It's really important to have somebody over some long form content stay the same. So we can see with our first example here, we've got a prompt to generate the video from our two reference images. The first is a Vortex Lime, a made up brand of a drinks can. And in hindsight, it should really have a lime splashing down, not a lemon. But what we have is a can, a very simple image. And then we have the end frame where you can see the can is visibly more wet, has water dripping down it, but it also has a lemon that lands by the side of it on the countertop. So what we're doing is basically putting a prompt between that first frame and that last frame to show exactly what's going to happen. And this is the prompt we've ended up with. And all of these prompts have been generated by Gemini as well. Cinematic slow motion. The soda can sits on a reflective white surface. A slice of fresh lemon crashes violently on top of the can, causing a massive splash of carbonated water to engulf the entire product. Bubbles, water droplets, and ice fly outwards. And then we've said a bit about the backlighting, so golden hour, high shutter speed, sharp focus, so all things that are going to make it like a professional product photo shoot. This looks realistic. And then we've also added, for some models where they generate audio, loud, crisp sound of a heavy splash followed by an intense crackling fizz of carbonation and ice cubes clinking against the glass. So we're going to test a variety of image to video models today. The first is going to be Google's VO 3.1. We've then got Sora 2, which is a really popular update to OpenAI's recent video model. We've then got Kling, and this is the most recent version of Kling that allows us to put in a first and last frame. And then we've got the Halio Minimax O2 as well, which is a recent version of that model. So let's take a look at Google VO 3.1 first. So what we can see is actually a good representation of the prompt. We've got the lemon coming down from the top of it. We've got a bunch of water absorbing that, although it's not very carbonated water. It's also missed the understanding of things like ice hitting off that. But it has successfully generated that start and end frame. And if we listen to the sound, we also get a realistic associated sound, although it doesn't sound that authentic to the actual advert. One thing I'd say it's captured really well is actually the motion of the objects actually coming into contact with each other, and also gives us that slow motion feel as well. Now Sora 2 in comparison. So one thing Sora's really understood here is that actually we've got that carbonated water feel. You can see that that's fizzy water, and also we've got ice, although the ice did appear out of the can there, and the lemon doesn't end up in the final frame beside the cup. But actually the audio of that clip sounded much closer to probably what we were expecting from that, and the motion is captured really well. We then have Kling. So Kling doesn't come with audio here, and we can see that it's not really understood the prompt here. We've got the water coming straight out of the can and not actually hitting it from above, and the lemon actually ends in the end frame but doesn't even touch the can on the way down, or it just has terrible, it doesn't even touch the can but has this bounce as it hits the countertop. So if we reference the original prompt, it's not really understood or adhered to that prompt, and it's not really got the idea of the motion of the water, the can, or the lemon there. And then if we come to the last model for this, we've got the Minimax Helio 02, which again has no sound. And actually this is unusual because it's not adhered to the prompt, but it probably has a more realistic advertising feel to it. So it's understood that actually this is probably going to be an advert, because actually we've got this nice protruding light coming from the background as the lemon goes in, but it's kind of mistook the lemon for the sun there. But actually the motion of the water coming out of it looks really nice. It's taken a strange understanding of the actual initial prompt, so it's not really followed the prompt. So for this, I'd say definitely Veo 3.1 and Sora 2 had the closest adherence to prompt. They have that initial audio as well, and probably represent more realistic motion of the lemon, the ice, the drink. Now let's introduce the next level of difficulty, and what we're going to do is introduce brand movement in the shot. So before we had the drinks can and there was no movement of the actual logos. Now we're going to simulate, one, introducing people into the frame. AI is notoriously bad at maintaining a good shot of real people. And two, adding a brand and movement into that brand. So actually what we've got here is a jumper with Nexus Creative, and that is going to actually have some motion this time as the UGC character dances. So again, we've got our input images, and this is a New York subway style image of a UGC character wearing baggy clothing with the Nexus Creative as the brand we're representing. So we've got the starting frame and the end frame there. And then what we're actually saying is handheld footage, a cool Gen Z girl wearing an oversized grey hoodie and baggy cargo pants performing a fast-paced shuffle dance on a tiled subway platform. So it needs to be on a subway platform. The heavy cotton fabric ripples and folds realistically with her momentum. So we want it to dance. It can interpret how the dance goes, but we want it to look realistic. Her chunky white sneakers grip on the floor firmly, no sliding. She executes a quick 360-degree spin, her hair whipping around her face, cinematic subway lighting with a slight film grain. So what we're looking for is, has it adhered to that prompt of the 360-degree spin? Does it capture the motion of the character? And does it capture the motion of the brand and maintain that brand consistency? And again, we've run it with the same 4 models, but something that kept coming up in testing here is actually we have Sora 2 continuously fail to generate because it's blocked by a moderation system. Now, I think this is because we're uploading pictures of people, and it doesn't enable you often to actually create motion images from those people, whereas the other models were very flexible in what you could actually upload there. So let's look at Google 3.1 image to video again. So we can see we've got the brand moving around. We've kind of missed the point. We don't actually have the person in the shot, we just have their body. I mean, they do the 360-degree spin, and actually it looks very realistic, and the brand maintains that consistency as we go round, although it's a bit blurry as it starts that, but this is pretty good. Although the one thing it's kind of misunderstood is the hair whipping around her face, despite the fact it's captured the right settings here with the subway tiled floor. And you can see that we've passed in the first frame and the last frame as these 2 images over here. So starting outside, ending here, but actually this character does not start outside, they just start in that last frame. So Sora 2 could not generate. Let's have a look at Kling with no audio. So it started with the correct first frame and actually quite nicely spun into the next frame. But if I pause here, you can see the brand creatives completely messed up. One thing that's always really difficult is maintaining text or visual aesthetic. But actually, as we go from the motion into the static images at the end, it does have that clarity and that brand consistency there. We also see, as they're rotating here, the hair spinning around, which is actually great. So I think this is probably done better this time than the Google VO3 because it's understood all the instructions, the first frame and the last frame, going from outside to inside, the tiled subway floor, keeping the brand in motion, but also following the prompt of the 360-degree spin. Now let's look at Minimax Helio 2. So we can see that actually this is probably the most lifelike in terms of the spinning and actually the dancing, and it looks really authentic, the dancing, and it's got the model there with the hair spinning around. However, the actual brand aesthetics look terrible. They are super blurred as we go throughout, and also the consistency of the model, kind of the face gets very blurred as we start to make movements here. However, a pretty good go at actually following the brand there. So overall, I'd say actually instead of Google VO3, which kind of misunderstood the prompt, had terrible sound, actually Kling is much better when we've introduced a person as well as motion to that person and the brand as well. Now I also tested Runway Act 2, which supposedly allows you to put a character image alongside a video, and what I've done is connected the input video with an image of myself down here and decided to use this to try and recreate myself in the same scene. Perhaps I'm doing it incorrectly, but I'm going to show you how terrible this was as well. And it kind of disturbs me. It's merged my arms together here, it's morphed my face, it's understood that there's some sort of motion, but it's kind of hilariously bad. So let's bring those two examples together and raise the difficulty again, something more close to home. So you are a business owner and you want to put yourself in a UGC ad and actually make it feel like you this time. So we're going to bring together the original image and an image of myself as a UGC actor and actually try and merge those into one advert together. So this time we've got the difficulty of maintaining consistency of us, making it a realistic product ad, and maintaining consistency on the product whilst we introduce motion as well. And this time we've generated 3 variants. We've got the starting frame, which is effectively me holding 2 of these Vortex Lime drinks cans. We've got another one, which is more of a UGC style ad where I'm drinking from the can. And the third one, we just got placing a can down on the countertop, so less character but still product consistency. Now for this I wanted to pull together models that are supposed to be really good at outputting UGC characters so that we can make a direct comparison. So we've got VO 3.1 again, because that had the really good brand consistency at the start. We've got Runway Gen 4, which we've not seen yet properly. And we've got Pixverse version 4.5 as well. And what we've done this time is given it the prompt that says a selfie style angle of me standing in a bright modern home kitchen, holding the Vortex Lime soda can close to the camera lens, showing it off. The subject smiles excitedly and points at the can with the other hand, and then pulls the can back slightly to show the label clearly. It should be demonstrated like handheld camera movement, slightly shaky iPhone aesthetic, so almost like somebody's filming me. Now let's have a look at Google VO3. It doesn't really look like me and it's quite scary, this first one.
This right here is the new Vortex Lime. I am so excited to finally try this.
So it's saying this right here is the new Vortex Lime. I'm so excited to try this. It's understood the general premise. It's me smiling in the kitchen. It's me super happy, but you can see there's something funky that happens with the hands here. What it's doing is when it goes to point, a new hand appears. Because the reference image at the start has 2 cans, it's kind of misunderstood the brief and got a bit confused. But if we didn't have that second can in, actually this hand appearing, if you imagine the second can was not there, this second hand appearing here and actually pointing, it's really understood the brief there, but it doesn't really look like me. We then have Runway Gen 4. So this one's super creepy. He drops the can, he points at the can, and then he walks away, but his head rotates as well. So it's really not got the motion here, and it's also not understood the brief. They weren't supposed to walk away, although this starting point's really good where they're looking at the camera, it looks like me, but he just chucks the can on the floor, which isn't very realistic at all. And you can see when you add more variables like motion, character, a brand, it gets increasingly complex to get consistent results at the moment with these models. So let's look at Pixverse V4.5, the first time we've seen it. We have the 2 cans there, we're smiling, and a can disappears again. And he's sort of pointing at the camera and not the can, so it's not really understood like how the finger's supposed to be pointing at object, and also there's no sound, and it kind of looks just like a little bit creepy. You'd never play this off as an actual UGC ad. So the second prompt, standing on a sidewalk in a leafy London suburb, holding the can, I raise it to my lips and take a long, refreshing drink, tilting my head back slightly. I lower the can, look into the camera and exhale. So let's see how it's performed here. And the reference image was quite odd because it's actually got this split screen. So I'm interested to see how this performs. First of all, I noticed in VO 3.1, it's completely morphed the brand into this new Vortex lime. So he takes a sip from the can, and then he's sort of chewing it, which is misunderstood, but it does have the authentic sound of the as he enjoys the can after that. Let's do Runway Gen 4 again. Possibly my favorite, most creepy one that I've seen so far. It's got no sound, but you can see it's actually done the split screen where he's enjoying the can up top. It's kind of morphed the brand and not really got consistency. And at the bottom, he's just sort of looking around as if he's enjoying the drinks can, which is quite funny. I would say terrible adherence to the prompt. It's not got the audio, not got the realism there, and it's misunderstood the motion and the character consistency. So Runway's not performing well at all in this test. And then finally, we've got Pixverse 4.5. So this has probably adhered most closely to the prompts. It's got the Vortex lime, even though it's spelt it differently there. And we're drinking from that. And it's a bit strange that we've got two characters, but it's actually, understood the leafy London suburb. This actually does look like a street in London. So actually the adherence to the prompt is pretty good there, but there's no audio, so we can't tell if it actually has done the sound, but pretty realistic. So VO 3.1 and Pixverse 4.5 performed best with the UGC-style brand ad there. Terribly up here, and I wouldn't say any of them were good for this first test, but if we were to pick one, it would be VO 3.1, where we've got the disappearing and reappearing hand. So let's take out the character and see how they perform with just a simpler shot of putting the drinks can on the desk. So it's got a subtle sound of the can hitting the desk there. This has the same character there. It picks it up and puts it down twice, which is a bit odd, but I guess the start frame was all that was given, and then the prompt said to actually put it down on the counter. It has understood that there's supposed to be condensation visible on the counter where the product has landed, and you can see that when it lifts it up here. So overall, pretty good with no character inside there and just a brand. Let's look at Sora 2 now. And this is a much simpler representation where it's actually just putting the can down. You can see the ring of condensation around, and we've got the sound of it actually touching the countertop. Now at this point, I've excluded Runway and Pixverse because of the previous outputs, and I actually wanted to understand how the sound of a simple movement would sound with the audio models here. So overall, pretty good. I would say probably Sora 2 wins that battle there because it's simply understood the prompt and probably looks the most realistic versus picking up and putting it down multiple times. So you can see there's no overall winner from this section. We had Sora 2 for the product on its own. We had VO 3.1. We had Pixverse 4.5 for the actual UGC ad itself. And then we picked VO 3.1, image to video. And what this is showing is a holistic view on that actually you often should try out multiple models side by side, exactly like we have here, because you're going to get different results each time you run it. And also some models are better at certain things than others. And this is why the app Weavy.ai is so good, because actually you can have this visual drag and drop comparison of all the models next to each other, or you could use a service like Higgsfield.ai to actually have a gallery where you can try multiple models in a row. Now, can we bring that all together in a final test and create a product scene that has consistency over multiple scenes? So everything we've seen so far have been 4 to 8 second clips, but how often do you produce a video that's actually 4 to 8 seconds? So the key to longer form content is actually consistency over multiple scenes. And the biggest challenge is that the character or the product must look identical in every shot, otherwise it will look AI generated. So AI often generates something where the details will change between the scenes, which then obviously breaks the story's continuity and makes it look inauthentic. So let's take the difficulty down a step a little bit by removing me from that and just focusing on a brand you might know, and that's the backpack brand or travel brand Osprey. So can we use input images to keep it consistent over multiple images and actually create a full-blown ad? I'm going to give you a glimpse of where we get to at the end.
Thật sẽ đặt cầm na được khóc biển pen flint thi lắc thua nát ni khám lúc khẩn thêm khăn ăn chom đèn. So
what you see there is 4 different videos merged together, but consistency of a single product bag or backpack, albeit with multiple colors and multiple users over a different scene to create a 26-second advert. And this is that longer form content that we're talking about. So how do we actually achieve that? Well, firstly, we generate the images the same as before. So for each of these scenes, we've got this Tokyo night scene. We've generated a first frame and a last frame. And you can see that we're demonstrating some features here, like the waterproofness of the bag. We've then got a jungle scene with a khaki bag, but we wanted to keep the bag exactly the same. So we've used Nano Banana Pro as the image model so that we can keep that consistent. And we've done the same where we have this airport scene, albeit the bag shouldn't be wet, but we have actually somebody picking up the bag and carrying that on the plane. And then we were supposed to have this final video merged together, but it didn't actually show, where we have actually them walking into the distance and we have the Osprey Wonder Awaits logo show it in the background as well to finish off the ad. So it proves that you can actually pull together different models here to create a really clean advert once you've got that consistency in prompt and consistency in images. So let's run through these and show you which perform best again. Cinematic slow motion, heavy rain begins to fall on the Osprey backpack. The camera slowly tracks around the product, so orbitally moving. Raindrops hit the ballistic nylon fabric, and you can see these prompts are really detailed, right? The neon lights in the background flicker. So we have VO 3.1, and again, we're testing these 4 models, VO, Sora, Kling and Minimax. And we can hear the sound of the rain actually dripping onto the bags. We can see the waterproof fabric and actually switches into that second visual of the bag there. Now it's not rotating orbitally, so it hasn't really understood and interpreted that prompt correctly. However, it does have authentic audio and it looks realistic. Let's see if Sora does better with the rotation here, and there's no rotation at all. Let's see if Kling has understood the prompt for the rotation. And actually, instead of rotating the camera, it's kind of rotating the bag, which sort of works for this as well. But then it kind of misunderstands the prompt and it becomes like a massive rainfall and then shows that. But it's almost like works as a clean transition into the next frame, which is the ending frame that we wanted there. And then Minimax Helio, we have water being thrown down as if it's somebody chucking a bucket on it. It's actually panning around like that. But again, it just blurs the brand a little bit. It doesn't look very authentic there. So the one that probably has the most consistency is this VO 3.1, although it didn't really understand the prompt, but what we're looking for is realism here. So we then wanted to pan out from the green backpack and actually come to this wider shot view to show it in a different scene. And you can see that VO3 was actually pretty good here. It starts in that image that pulls from the last one, but actually then it gets a little bit weird where it distorts the bag there. But we do have those like natural jungle sounds in the background. We have Sora, which starts off really well because it pulls away, like panning backwards from that backpack, but then it starts to morph the brand and look a little bit artificial. The background doesn't look realistic at all. So again, VO3 is probably better off here. We've got Kling, which has a really nice orbit away from the bag, but then we get this sort of morphing of the bag here, but actually probably the best so far that it's actually got that orbit rotation, and that's what we saw as well in the previous example, that Kling actually performed really well to rotate that bag. And then you can see immediately that this looks nothing like the bag. Once we pan out in the Minimax, it like really zooms out and it's really artificial shot of the product there. So probably the least useful there was the Minimax Helio, least realistic and least consistent with the prompt. So we'll probably take Kling forwards to the end video there. Or if we wanted sound, we'd take VO 3.1. Now the third shot was a stationary backpack with somebody grabbing the padded handle, and the camera tracks the movement smoothly as the bag is lifted off the ground and put onto the shoulder. So we're actually involving some human motion here, and you can imagine some of the results are a bit quirky with the human addition here. So I'm not sure if you can hear the audio, but we've kind of got this foreign language being spoken in the background, and it was not prompted to do that. It's just kind of decided because we're traveling that we should have that. So it's quite an interesting take. We have somebody swinging it and putting it on the back, and actually this looks very authentic. Somebody walking away. We've got picture of the image of the airport in the background, and actually this looks very realistic. Somebody's picked up the bag and kind of understood the prompt there. We then have Sora 2, and it's an interesting take on it. The bag looks realistic, but then they shove the bag on their front, which is quite funny there. Quite kind of misunderstood the brief as somebody walking away with the backpack being shown as the advert. We've got Kling, backpack being picked up, and then sort of suddenly jumps on the back. It doesn't show that smooth motion. Otherwise looks quite good as they're walking away. Probably has the best scene of them walking away there. And then this is probably the funniest. Minimax Helio 2, the guy's walking away, the bag kind of breaks. He's deciding to hold it in his hands there, not even putting it on his body. Not understood the context of that. And then finally what we've asked it to do is actually we've just used Kling for this because we know this is going to be a fairly easy to produce final frame, which is actually, let's just show the brand in the background as somebody walks away. And there we go, we've got the brand label that shows in the background. So let's go in and compare now the pricing, the functionality and the rankings that we gave at each stage for each different use case. And we were ranking them based on adherence to prompt, audio versus no audio, realism, motion with product and character motion, and character consistency as well. So the first one we did was product ads with no motion, the drinks can, and Google VO 3.1 was an outlier here with Sora in close second. If you remember, there were some really poor outputs from Kling AI and Helio 02. So we put them joint in the A tier here because they still followed closely with the prompt, but the outputs were not that great. We then have the product ads where we had the UGC characters spinning on the platform, and Kling AI was our favorite here with Google VO 3.1 and Helio 02 as the close second. But then we saw other results from things like Runway Gen 4 that did not follow the prompt at all and showed it consistently falling down the rankings there. The UGC ads with the founder, none of these were particularly outstanding, I'll be honest, but we've put Google VO 3.1 up first because it actually had the audio, which was quite a nice addition to that. We've got Sora 2 as second, but everything below that second tier were actually pretty poor. The UGC character not following the prompt and walking away with the head spinning, a split screen of me drinking from a can and me pretending to drink from a can on the second one. So you had quite comical outputs here. But it just goes to show that if you use a platform like Weavy.ai, you can actually compare those outputs like for like to get something that you're actually looking for. And then the biggest test was the character consistency. Now, Google VO 3.1 really outperformed in this, showing that actually can take a consistent product between those characters. And I see Google VO 3.1 and future generations of that model being able to actually rise up the rankings to be the best in the motion and the character. But you can see that actually consistently it was ranked top in a lot of areas. So if you're only starting with one model, I'd start with VO 3.1, albeit it's costly, and we'll cover that in a moment. So we then have the overall performance, and overall, from everything I tested, VO 3.1 was probably the model that I'd stick with. With Sora 2, when it produced, apart from the fact it can't produce UGC characters, was pretty good, with Kling AI also on a level playing field with that. Helio 02 and Runway Gen 4, as well as Pixverse 4.5. We got one good output from that. All of those were cheaper to run, but actually the outputs were unusable for any of our business use cases. Now, the performance is not the only factor. We have things like costs, max video length, etc. that we can also consider, and we've got all the models that we looked at today here in a table, but here are some of the key highlights. We've got max video length, so we got Kling and Google VO3, which were some of our best performing models that can actually produce longer form content up to 60 seconds or up to 2 minutes. We've got the audio that was built into VO3 and Sora, but not as part of the others. So you have to generate your audio separately if you're going to use other models like that. And then of course, we've got things like pricing. So if we were to compare a 5-second video for VO3, it's going to cost you 75 cents for a 5-second video. You can see why just in this demo alone, I racked up hundreds of dollars in costs with multiple demos taking place. We've then got Sora, which is 50 cents, or if you're going to generate higher quality outputs, it's going to charge you $1.50 or $2.50. So again, a very expensive model versus something like Kling, which actually gave really good outputs at times and was significantly cheaper, 15 cents to 30 cents for that same 5-second video. So 5 times less. So then it becomes a trade-off of quality, i.e. VO3 or Sora, for actually budget. So you've definitely got the most affordable model, Kling AI, up top, and the most expensive at the bottom with VO 3.1. So if you were to just pick 2 models, I'd actually test it out with the VO 3.1 and the Kling AI side by side, so you can see what the cheapest model produces, because often actually the outputs were really good for the price, and what the most expensive model produces, because often they were the best outputs but cost a lot per second. Now, most of the images we generated inside this video were made with Nano Banana Pro, but Nano Banana or Google Gemini 3 is not only for images. So in this next video, we're going to dive into 8 powerful use cases of Nano Banana that you can use today for your business.